Alright, what's going on, guys? Try back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing another Walking Dead video leading up to the 9th season for the Walking Dead television series. In this one, we're going to give our thoughts on a second possible time skip in the first half of season 9. And spoiler warning as per usual if you are not cut up for The Walking Dead. So just getting going for today, just waking up, having my coffee, and got some messages about this one. I've seen a few in the last few days, which is that apparently, according to spoilers, that there may be a second time skip in The Walking Dead Season 9. So there's going to be like a 2-year time skip type of thing at the beginning of the season. So after the events of All Out War at the end of Season 8, going into Season 9, there's likely going to be a 2-year time skip. But then what it's saying is that after episodes like 5 and 6, close to the mid-season finale, there's going to be a second time skip, which is 5 to 6 years. Like, what? So this one came in from Jakoob Shmeedurmahn as well as Donnie Blair. Donnie Blair said, if that 5 to 6 year second time jump between episodes 5 and 6 does happen, that is how they're going to deal with Rick and Maggie's leave. They will set it up where both characters could return either later in the second half or in Season 10. I don't think Rick or Maggie is getting killed off. That is also why we haven't heard any of any whisper scenes of characters appearing yet, because they're waiting for that second time jump, and then after that we will start getting hints of the whispers, and I bet in the season finale they will finally be introduced to set them up for Season 10. And then Jakoob had said something similar, that there will be a second time skip that's 6 years, and Rick's death isn't confirmed. Also, Henry's actor will be replaced by his older brother, Matt Lintz, after the time skip. So this is a crazy one. The reason why I hadn't done a video on it kind of earlier for you guys, because I've seen messages about this since last week, this whole concept of a second time skip, is because I don't like it at all. So we've spent all this time, and Fear the Walking Dead has had trouble with this as well too, where if you skip huge portions, like you can have some time skips, after All Out War, I think it makes total sense that you have one time skip, because that's really like, so much action, so much craziness, and the story's been going consistently all the way through, to where if you include a couple-year time skip, it feels like it makes sense. So you go from about 2.5 years in the zombie apocalypse to about 4.5 to 5 years after a time skip, which is what we're most likely going to see in Season 9. So you go from 2.5 to 4.5 or 5. But a second time jump would bring you from 4.5 to 5 years to more like a decade. So it's more like 10 years, which... this is really, really bizarre, right? So that would take you to a territory where you're close to real-world time, because if the series started in 2010, that's when the zombie apocalypse started, All Out War finishes in about their 2012, halfway through, or close to 2013. We're in 2018, so if you did another time jump would be 2 years from that, which would put you in 2014 or 15, and then 5 or 6 years from that would be 2019, 2020, if your numbers are correct and you're looking at like 5 years with a year or two, give or take. So, to put it in 2019 type territory would catch it up to where the world is at right now in terms of, where we're at, where we have evolved. So maybe that's a little bit interesting to see, like, okay, what if we look at the Walking Dead universe at that time in terms of real world time and keep it kind of similar to where they're at in real world time, and each season is a year or something like that, then you kind of get a better understanding of how the world would change. So there are some things about it that I think are intriguing, but that's what the 2-year time skip, I would say, is supposed to do. If you don't want to do a 2-year time skip, maybe make it 4 years or something like that, and have it kind of be done the same way. So, having 2 time skips in the first half is going to be just kind of crazy, but if it's a way where they have to kind of write it in order to deal with people leaving so that they can kind of have the door open for answering those questions later on, reinventing a new beginning, reinventing the show, okay, I just think it's a super risky move, right? Because you could lose your audience, because when you start to jump all over the place like this, and Fear the Walking Dead has had trouble with this in the first half of Season 4, even though I feel like they did a good job where they had these 2 timelines going at the same time, it wasn't that hard to follow. They used a color palette difference between the one and the other. which The Walking Dead has done before in season 6 in their premiere, and then they converge at a certain point, and you get exposition to explain what happened in the one, and explain how that kind of ended off with a certain character, which will be spoilers, we'll keep it out of this one, and then they kind of converge and they join up for that end of that mid-season finale, and you kind of get them at one point together. To do 2 different time skips in the same season of Walking Dead is kind of nuts, but we'll have to see how they're going to deal with this whole this person's leaving and that person's leaving thing. I don't know. I mean, how are you going to do, so you skip once at the beginning of season 9, and then you skip again even further, but the problem is then you've skipped like 7 or 8 years in total, right? And in 7 or 8 years, I mean, you want to talk people being angry about Fear the Walking Dead with them skipping like a year or 2 years where we didn't get to see it. They filled it in with the stadium, so it was handled pretty well, I think, in season 4 to explain away the events after the dam and kind of close that gap for what happened to the Fear group in the interim between the time skip when Morgan comes into Fear and Fear group kind of meets him. It's a couple years there, or a year at least and a half, to where they kind of meet each other. So they did a pretty good job in Fear of explaining that using the location of the stadium where they were kind of safe for a while, so we didn't need to see it. So that was cool. I liked how they did that in Fear. But this one has spaghetti all over it. I mean, this is like, hey, you got one timeline going here and this one here, and then by the time you get to the mid-season finale and we start seeing things go through here, of The Walking Dead Season 9, you could be at a point where we're literally like 7 or 8 years ahead of where we were then, and that means that everybody's going to have to look 7 or 8 years older. You're going to have, you know, Daryl's going to have to probably have some gray hairs and stuff like that. They're going to have to do the costume design for everybody, you know, even totally more different than it would be after 2 years. Everybody would be aged a lot more. You'd have characters like Enid being, maybe you'd have to recast her or something, or somehow try to make her look like she's in her, you know, 20s instead of her teenage years. Like you said here about this whole Henry thing, you'd have to have him replaced by his older brother. There's just all these things about this that it's like, you know, really, I think, got to tread lightly with this whole idea and got to be careful. 1 time skip per year is probably good, because otherwise you could lose your audience, you could lose the flow of the story, and people will be like, what's going on? Like, it shouldn't be so, for casual viewers, it shouldn't be so, maybe for your hardcore viewers it's okay, but for casual viewers it shouldn't be so convoluted or so crazy with back and forth and all this kind of deal that you know, it makes it hard to follow. And I feel like the Walking Dead original series has even more casual followers than Fear the Walking Dead does. Fear the Walking Dead is kind of a more hardcore fan base for Walking Dead. They watch the original series and then they watch Fear 2. So with them, you could do a little bit more advanced stuff, I think. But with the original Walking Dead series, it's kind of like, you know, you have so many casual water cooler viewer type people that it's a different audience, I think. And if you do too many time skips like this, you run the risk of losing the audience and people just saying, oh, I don't care anymore. You know, like too much of a reboot, you know, to where it's like trying to restart it all over again with different characters, with minus Maggie and minus Rick. So those are my thoughts on the possibility of a second time skip. To make it simple, I don't like it. You guys can leave your comments below. What do you think about this kind of idea? Another 5-year time jump before the mid-season finale of The Walking Dead Season 9. I really hope it's not accurate as well, too, because I don't know how that's going to look, and if they're going to even be able to do the set designs and everything the way you'd expect them to. What the hell is going on with The Walking Dead? We do have some questions for today, and we'll go through just a few. Trebecca's Finest said, Trev, do you own the first copy of the Walking Dead comic book series? Would love to know. And no, I don't. I see that it's still going for like a couple $1,000s. So for a first printing, no, I don't own it. I wish I would have bought one back in, you know, like 10 or 15 years ago when I started reading the comics. Instead, I bought the trade, and because it was like $100 or something like that for the first issue, and now I'm wishing I really would have bought it because it's now a couple thousand or whatever on eBay, right? Daniel says, Trev, how is The Walking Dead doing for the comic book series right now? After so many years, we all know the TV series is not doing all that well and is losing a lot of viewers. Did the comics lose readers too in All Out War and Negan killing Glenn? So, no, for Daniel here, to answer this question, The Walking Dead TV series and comic book series it seems, are totally different animals. The Walking Dead comic book series has been pumped by the TV series, so it's gotten even better. Like, more people have checked it out, more people have watched it because of the exposure of the TV series. But in the last couple of years, even though the Walking Dead TV series has sort of started to decline a lot in terms of ratings and in terms of fan interest, the comic book series has not, basically. Now, just recently, I think with the recent story arc that they've been doing, it's kind of been like, it's okay. So, those ones I think are a little bit down, but overall, it's not like doing half the amount of sales it was before or something like that. No, the Walking Dead comic book series is actually doing just fine. Like I said, the first issue is still going, I checked it yesterday, is still going for this video for tons, as a collector's item. So, it's not like less people are collecting the comic book series. It's pretty much the same as it was before. There are months when it's in the top 10 in terms of releases. If there's a big issue or something, the trades are always selling really well. Even comparison, it's Image's biggest comic that they probably ever had. Right up there with how popular Spawn was, I think, in the 90s. So, the comic's doing fine, even though the TV series is struggling so much. Engor 1978 says, you look at the Fear the Walking Dead promo shots and think, who are those guys? They're mostly dead. And that's also somewhat true with The Walking Dead, too. As I do these kind of timeline videos, I did a timeline video for Fear where we went back to the first season and we go through kind of, there's just a lot of pictures of it as we go through the timeline to explain it. And you start looking through these and you're like, damn, everybody's dead. And The Walking Dead original series, too, and we did the retro trailer, throwback reaction, and when I've been looking at some pictures of the first season, you look at it, you see, like, there's Rick at the forefront. You got Rick, you got Shane, you got Lori, you got Carl, you got Andrea, you got her sister, you got Amy, you got, like, those characters at the forefront. You don't even see Daryl on the posters. You don't even see Carol on the posters, hardly. Sometimes she's in the background. For the first couple seasons, and it's like everybody's dead, So it's really crazy. It's funny to me when people compare it to Game of Thrones and say, like, Game of Thrones will kill off anybody, and they're not, like, they try to say that with Game of Thrones nobody's safe, this kind of deal. But then you look at The Walking Dead, it's like, dude, they just about killed everybody. Like, in terms of who's left. Like, Rick, for the season 1 poster, Rick is like the only one left on that poster, because the other characters, Morgan and Carol and Daryl, they weren't on the original promo posters. It was Rick and his immediate family, Carl, Lori, and the others. And they've basically gone to an extent now where if they even kill Rick off in season 9, they have wiped the whole poster off. If Fear the Walking Dead is one thing, but The Walking Dead at this point has cleared the entire first season poster. Probably the second season poster too, except for maybe Daryl and Carol, who are kind of in the background, right? As they started to kind of come more to the forefront as the seasons went by. So that's really crazy stuff, man. Wow. Brandon Neer says, the tweet by the Walking Dead Skybound account, don't believe everything you hear. Doesn't it also maybe clue in or cue the whispers? Because they don't bother, but they whisper, or they don't, the hearing thing and whispering. So does this confirm Whisper Angle in season 9? Well, we'll see on Friday with the trailer if we're going to be getting to see the whispers this season. I really hope so, man, because the whispers are really fun as a group of villains. They're very scary, and, it's The Walking Dead, so you should always have something like that going on. But it looks to me like they're probably not in too much of a hurry to bring them in. So hopefully we're wrong about that, and they do bring them in pretty early in season 9, and maybe there's some way responsible for Rick's death or something that happens in and around that. So, man, we'll see. Then the next one was, do you think if they kill him in the TV series that it will affect the comics at all? So I kind of answered that one already. If they kill Rick off in the TV series, I don't think it will hurt the comics if Rick dies in season 9. I think it actually might help the comics, because people are going to be able to get to see Rick's journey further on in the comics than they did in the TV series. So they might enjoy the comics even more, because they'll be like, the comics are the true version. The TV series was great, but it got all messed up by all this stuff that was going on. And, so the comics is like the pure version of The Walking Dead, right? It's not like the TV series is better. It becomes, kind of more, for most people, more clear that the comic series is the true Walking Dead, because in that, you got to see Rick go through maybe a couple hundred issues or whatever over 15 or 20 years rather than 9 years, right? So it's what it is. Cat Lover 1981 says, if Rick dies, who will take care of Judith because she won't have any living family. So do you think it will be Michonne or someone else? So Michonne is usually out there with the sword, swinging the sword away, but I think she'll probably do that as well too. You could just have somebody in the community, like a C or D list character, take care of Judith, and that'd be fine. Then you have some scenes maybe with Michonne going to check on her and that kind of thing, and kind of taking her in as her own. But if you do these time skips, then you could move her ahead in age as well too, right? So it could be kind of interesting for that. So maybe that's what they're kind of thinking of, is if they do an 8-year time skip, they get to bring Judith up to 9 or 10 years old or whatever, and you could start to have an actor cast as her, have her go around and stuff like that. It'll be like when Carl first started. It'll be like a new beginning, like the series starting over again, just without Rick and with some of the others at the forefront instead. And yeah, the last one will be from Daniel, who says also something somewhat similar. The show imploding has given me a whole new respect for the comic. Something about it knowing it'll, for the most part, always be there and no chance of factors like actors wanting out to ruin it gives me comfort. And yeah, that's true, man. There are some advantages over the comic book series versus the TV series. In the comic series, you get to see Carl survive through, you get to see Sophia survive through, you get to see Rick survive through, and Andrea as well too. So there's some big differences there in terms of the TV series and the comic, and I definitely understand now, and going forward, depending on what happens in season 9 here, if people start to prefer the Walking Dead comic book series versus the TV series because they view it as kind of a more true telling of what the story was supposed to be versus the TV series that had all these problems with people's contracts ending and then them wanting to leave to go do other projects and movies and whatnot, and this whole kind of thing. So let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments below. Second time skip and comics versus TV series. Do we now go with comics? Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment below. If you like this video, please thumb it up below. You can also share, you can favorite, and if you're new and you want to subscribe, I would appreciate it. You can do it. Bottom left to subscribe. That's it for this video, guys. I'll see you again soon for another Walking Dead video. As always, it's Trev, and I'm saying peace. Later, guys. See you soon.